Hi, folks. Just waiting for a couple people to get on. Look at my hair. It's a time. It's a real time. Um, it's Friday and it's my live at 4. I have some very sad news. It's not sad. But for the 5 people who show up to my lives, they are. I'm just gonna do one a week for at least the summer, and I might even cancel it sometimes, but I'll post something. Um, so I was doing Fridays at 4 and Tuesdays at 8 lives, but I am gonna go smack in the middle of the week, Wednesdays at 8. So starting next week, I'll just be on once a week. So as always, feel free to send me topics that you want me to talk about. I like engaging with people on lives, so if anyone's around, that's my favorite. Um, Usually I just get on and ramble about something, which I'm going to do today because I have been working up until this minute and haven't really crafted much in the way of thoughts. But I did want to talk briefly. I always say that, but then it ends up being longer. Um, about defensiveness. And again, more in line of, I don't know if anyone has seen, I've posted a couple videos about thoughts that might be getting in your way of doing anti racism work. And part of the work to do the work is getting clear on like what your thoughts are. I gave a couple examples of thoughts that you might be having, like, what if I get this wrong? Or what if I'm racist? Um, and I don't want to be uncomfortable. This feels crappy. Um, and so I talked about like those thoughts and how those thoughts create feelings, and then those feelings create actions or inaction. And one of the common ones that happens for many of us is defensiveness or doing nothing. So a lot of us, I mean, this can be applied to lots of aspects of your life. I'm obviously, maybe not obviously, but talking about doing anti-racism work and or getting defensive about um, your privilege or role in um, white supremacy and white privilege, your benefit of white privilege, talking to people who are white. Hey, Mary! Somebody's here! You're catching me live. I was just saying my live at Fridays at 4 is changing. I'm only doing one once a week, Wednesdays at 8. So maybe I'll see you then. So I was just about to be talking about defensiveness and defensiveness as a reaction to a thought and a feeling. So often, so I'd like us to like get curious. Like if you find yourself getting defensive about something, ask yourself why. Like why why is this bothering me? Why am I getting defensive? What is the thought I was having that got me here? And then what is the feeling? Um, I think a lot of times it's going to look like it's going to be guilt or shame that's showing up for you. Um, and when it's anger is a secondary emotion. So, like, under that anger is something else. So, we tend to get defensive when we think something is true, when we believe there's merit or truth in something, right? Like, if somebody says something to you, I don't know, just like something really mundane, like, whatever. You have three eyes. It's a really terrible example, but um, you don't get defensive about it because you're like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like I don't have three eyes. Or even if it's something you're really confident in, um, like I'm a pretty good parallel parker. Not gonna brag. I'm just like kind of okay at it. Um, and if I fuck up, although sometimes I do get like really flush and like embarrassed if I fuck up, but like ultimately, if I know I'm not doing a good job, I don't think that I'm a bad parallel parker because of that one time. Like I'm kind of confident in my ability to parallel park. Maybe again, not the best example. My point is that when you feel confident about something, so if somebody's like, you're a terrible parallel parker, this is a tongue twister. Um, I would be like, yeah, this was a bad time. This was a bad example. I fucked up. Not my best moment, but like I'm actually like I'm okay at this. I don't know if you're still here, Mary. Do you have an example of anything that you wouldn't feel defensive about if somebody called you out on it? I don't know. I don't know if you're still here. Um anyway, back to being defensive. Getting If you find yourself getting defensive, like ask yourself why. Like what is the thought behind that and what is the feeling? Um like I don't understand. I don't um Mary says, I think people get defensive because no one wants to be seen as having cognitive dissonance. I think this is huge in race relations and no one wants to be called a racist. For sure. Yeah, and I think example coming up. And yeah, we talked about this a bit the other day. I mean, you and I, Mary, had some dialogue about it, and I posted about um, being called a racist, feeling like getting defensive about that because equating being racist with being a terrible person. And Mary, I saw that you posted the same thing I did about circles of what was it called? Was it circles of whiteness? Um, about varying like degrees, and I think you even said most people can recognize, like most of us can recognize when something is like hateful and intentional, like intentionally racist or harmful. And most of us, and I'm saying most, well, most white people, but also probably a lot of non-black people as well, um, might identify um, like that intentional bad, like quote unquote bad, hateful, racist stuff as like that's racist. And like, so when somebody says that I'm racist or I'm doing something racist, what I think they're saying is like I'm intentionally like a shitty person and I'm like intentionally causing harm. Um so there's lots of discussion about intent versus impact. But I think we get tripped up on that when we our behaviors get called racist or we get called racist. Like I'm not like actively out to like make BIPOC people's lives worse. Intent, like I'm not consciously doing that, and I think that's what a lot of us hear when you get called racist. And so this, Mary, was it called circles of whiteness? Um, or maybe it was like how racism, the varying degrees of racism, essentially, and how um, actually being anti-racist can look. There was like 7 various degrees, and like how a lot of racist actions and thoughts are really covert, and people might identify as allies, or that, but they might be passive aggressively being racist, etc. What was my point about this? Just, I guess that it can look a lot of different ways, and when we hear racism, we assume it's like circle one. It's like the worst kind, but it can be we can be racist in lots of ways. Yeah, so getting back to being defensive around, like, what is the thought for you behind that? Is it about not about your worth and whether you're being called a good person or not, and you're associating that, or whether you think like somebody's t- accusing you of being intentionally harmful? I haven't really understood the all lives matter like defense. And I wonder, somebody showed up and then they left. And I don't, that's one that's super curious for me about like, why do you feel threatened by stating that somebody's life matters? Like, how does that, impact your, nobody's saying your life doesn't matter. That's obvious. Nobody has had to say that. That's why we have explicitly have to say Black Lives Matter, because Black people are being killed at an alarming rate. Yeah, just, I don't understand like where that comes from. Like, equality isn't like this piece of pie that like if somebody else has it, you don't have it. Like, and anyway, I'm I'd be curious, even if you have that. I don't know if I want to invite this, but like, why do you feel the need to be defensive? Like, why do we need to state that the obvious? Um, anyway, so I am rambling clearly, and I'm gonna stop. I don't know if did you have anything to add, Mary? I think what I could have probably said was summed up with, if you find yourself getting defensive, get curious about what that's about. If your reaction is to be defensive, it's probably because there's some element of that that feels true to you, and to do a little digging around, like, what is that feeling that's coming up gonna probably be related to guilt or shame, and what is the thought that is accompanying that. And usually that's a good place to start, is the places that feel really uncomfortable. Like I was talking about yesterday, that's probably the place where you have the best amount of learning to do. Yeah. Any other thoughts on that, Mary? If you're still here. Okay, so I will wrap it up. It's not my most eloquent, but it's just a thought I was having about why we get defensive. I mean, I'm doing this myself as well. Like, where I feel myself getting my back up is the place I need to be looking the most. And probably because I believe there's some truth to whatever someone is saying. Yeah. So that's it. Thanks for coming by. I invite you to spend some time with why you get defensive and examining that a little bit more, and starting from that place to do the work. All right. Thanks, folks. I'll see you Wednesday at 8. Loves ya.